turned it on.
I mean, downstairs, I tried, yesterday I tried like 4 or 5 times to pull up the booklet, and it wouldn't open, it just spun and spun
Yeah,
and
sometimes the
spun.
booklet itself gets overloaded, so it may be that too.
And I tried GimTip, it did the same thing, just.
Did you power down and power back on?
Mhm.
That
But
usually
yesterday,
works.
it
Were you
was,
using Chromebook or desktop?
I used both, tried both, and it didn't work on either. It was just like, just curious. I know that E-Hall's been a real cool issue for me.
Oh, I know.
They've been having a thing to where it doesn't say they can pass one, they can make one.
Well, they can make it, then it won't show up on mine.
Mm.
And then when like the class is over, it shows up. So, and you can't really accept them off of their computers.
So for sake of time, if you look at the, we hit escape real quick. In the notes, just look at questions 13 and 16, and then we'll kind of go look at them, see if there was any identifying factors that made one of us more successful than another, rather than sitting here trying to spin.
Gotcha. So in other words, have the test pulled up.
I've already got
Not
it, I
yours,
built
I
it in
got
the
it.
slides.
Keep it easy. Thanks, sir.
So with question 13, there was definitely some others. I wanted to specifically focus for this on star questions because, but I don't have the frequency distribution pulled up. I was gonna screenshot that and attach it in here, but. So 13 was used in 2015, 16 was used in 2014.
Solitary neglect.
And solitary neglect, I know that that one's an issue, and I know it will be an issue if we don't readdress it. But is there anything else in this question that would have made dramatic differences? Because we were all like 10% away.
Well, that one on
From each
13, to me, with the numbers all there, was one of the things I know my kids struggled on.
With question 13?
Yeah, because they looked at the numbers here and they were going, oh, well, that's, dot, 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 dot. I don't know if they were looking from the 3 divisions of colonies, or how they were looking at it to get their numbers. But I know that there was a lot of those kids that had a hard time.
I think with this one, it is gonna simplify because whenever they make this question again, if they use the exact same one, the way that they're gonna do it is put the 4 boxes there and then just drag it to wherever it's supposed to go.
That would make
So
more
that's all it
sense.
is. And this one, same thing here, is we've practiced these graphs and charts whenever we do our, like the daily assignments, those have a lot of graphs in them to where they have to analyze the graphics and use them. So this becomes a thing that they get better and better at.
Oh, I agree, I'm just saying for learning check 1, that I know what caught my
Oh,
kids.
yeah.
Yeah.
Were the numbers, they should have left the blanks and let the kids put either drop up where they go. I think that would have been less confusing for my kids than to put numbers in the boxes.
I think the level of exposure that we've given them to this.
Now they can do it and it won't matter to them.
So I think with this one, even then, we still should practice this a little bit more as well, is kind of do charts like these to go ahead and get them used to, like, even just manipulatives, just dragging and dropping, having them fill in the boxes themselves. We could do a slides presentation like this to where all they have is like the boxes around the floor and then they just drag them into the right place.
Yeah.
So that way it's not just the same manipulative where it's the boxes at the bottom and the answers just go into the boxes. They can actually put them into this chart type thing.
I like that because with this one, they only have to know 1. But if we do it through a Nearpod drag and drop, then they'd be required to be
No.
successful in all 4.
Yep.
Well, see, the kids were also looking at is, okay, I've got to answer all 4 boxes.
And they get
Because there's
overwhelmed.
4 numbers, instead of saying, this is the box you need, only one of the boxes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that was the first time they'd been exposed really to anything in the Learn Check 1, and since that time, I know we've looked at and modified how we teach things that might be.
Okay.
I think that one, they're literally answering 4 questions,
Mhm.
which,
It gets them in trouble.
alright, I guess we can look at 16.
Mhm. So this one is a cause and effect one. Where it's basically, like, I obviously on this one had the best data with this one, and this one for me is just drill and kill. So basically all I tell them is the reason why it happened, and it's just the distance from England. And then the second part is the result of it, is since we're so far away, we have to fend for ourselves. So what I did is I give an example of like a kid who's left all alone. He gets to eat pizza and do whatever he wants whenever his parents aren't home, and then all of a sudden his parents are now home, and they're gonna tell him what to do, and he's not gonna wanna do it because he's used to doing it his own way. And that's the same thing that happened with the United States, the 13 colonies.
So was there key words in here that we could kind of point out to help them be successful when Star rolls around?
Well,
Control.
great deal of control.
Yeah.
Because it says American colonists have great deal of control over local and regional matters.
Mhm.
So if they have great control over those two things, how does England fly into that?
I think also
I like your idea of how they're so far away.
we need to reiterate the idea of self-government,
Mhm.
because I've been taught early on that self-government's always the right answer with the state of Texas. But one of our learning checks kind of proved that, or debunked that theory.
Yeah.
Especially when a lot of them have the same answer, like self-government, but they're just worded differently.
You gotta watch those answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think self-government, yes, control over land, or local and regional matters.
Mhm.
But like you said, with the neglect, just, it's the first time you're on your own. You have to
We got,
make
you know,
progress.
that for me, especially my EL is explain what is neglect.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
didn't think about that till right now because that's not something in their vocabulary.
And that's what I had to, that was the whole purpose of that experience, that whole example with the kid, is just making sure that they understand what the word neglect means. And most of the time, whenever the parents are working and they're just at home by themselves, that's technically neglect. Even if the parents come home at night or whatever, it's still
You know,
neglect.
forever, how long by
Yeah.
yourself.
Is there a Spanish word for neglect that sounds similar to it, or is it like way off?
Actually, I have no idea.
I don't know.
Delucio, desus,
So,
Video?
no.
The other part of that is, it's not just my Spanish kids that for ESL, I've
Yeah,
got
It's just not a
several.
very common word.
Yeah, it's not a word we use in our everyday vocabulary.
I guess it's more directly related to like disregard,
Mhm.
based on the
Yeah.
sentence.
That's a fair point.
Ignored.
Mhm. So that's the other thing I said too, is ignored and neglect have that G sound in it. And I'm very good with those, like mnemonics, neglect, ignored, like, and then now that they've talked about, like Andrew Jackson, they know the word ignored is important, so.
Just need to connect those two for them.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find a good way to phrase salutary, because it does sound like salute, and like, you could almost say, like, that's your dismissal.
I go the opposite, I go with, sound like solitary,
Yeah.
whenever they're in jail, they're by themselves, it's solitary confinement. And essentially, they just know that they're by myself, so I
Make my
guess I
own
do
rules.
whatever, yeah. So that's another way to go ahead and go about that one.
Yeah, this one we were kind of all over the board, but we all kind of relatively similar to the average, which I think is a good thing. We're not too far off. We can probably swap over to the second learning check.
I looked at reconstruction, I was like, oh, yeah, there's not much to teach, is there, for the 8th grade?
Oh, I know.
But see, I was still, sometimes I still have my mindset at high school, there's so much more that we take from
At the end.
reform and reconstruction, I have to slow myself and go, oh, yeah, we're not talking about that.
Cause it's almost like with this reconstruction unit that we're prepping them for the high school level.
It is. And I didn't realize Forney put their 10th graders through US history if you're regular. If you're on the track to just basically graduate with a certificate of like welding or cosmetology, they're not making them take world history. And so if you're in
Really?
advance or AP, you take it as a junior. You only have to have, technically have 3 histories. But I was talking to the guy at my last OA training,
Mhm.
and I said, you're kidding. I said, 11th graders aren't ready for that far in US history. Their mentality's not ready.
Mhm.
He said, yeah, he's been fighting it since he's been over there. And I said, I think they should have them because their idea of life might change before they graduate. So to me, that sounds like the counselor saying that you're not doing anything else. So here, we're gonna stick you 3 histories.
So this one, yeah, it had the most questions out of any of our learning checks
Mhm.
this year. But it also had quite a few that were from STAR,
Mhm.
and I feel like that's where the biggest difference per class level was with the STAR related questions, and I thought that was interesting. I don't know if that's just the way that the students perceived it. I think a lot of the STAR ones were converted into being hot text
Mhm.
and drag and drop, which
Mhm.
threw them off early in the year.
That's a fair point.
See, this will be the first year anybody actually gets any feedback on the new data. Because I know last year, when they did, questions out on the test, they still weren't in the new format. They were still new questions, but they were in the old format. And I argued, that was one of my arguments, I don't think we got a good data read, can kids figure this out? But I told my kids, I said, unless you are a really good, strong writer in English, do not write. The short answer, you
Mhm.
bullet point it.
Points.
I said, because you'll find out, we're gonna find out, I'm afraid, hey, they're gonna look at things like that.
Was this one,
Which one's?
because this one was never, like, these were never turned into the STAR 2.0 questions at this point, is that correct?
I think you're correct.
I think this one is just a tricky question in general, because they know that taxation literally has something to do with the Boston Tea Party, because of, Boston, the tea tax. This one is more of a date type thing.
This is the word that I think helped
Resolution?
kind of guide their thinking. Because when I went back over this with the class, I said, all right, so what's the topic of this question? He said, Virginia Stamp Act. Well, it's the resolving of the Virginia Stamp Act.
Mhm.
And I think that kind of helped clarify a little bit.
Okay, so maybe resolved is another word we work on with some of them, what does it mean? What is a resolution to even something?
Because they've heard it so many times, but they're not
Yeah.
gonna use that in their daily vernacular.
No. See, I guess when I think of Stamp Act or the resolution of Stamp Act, I never put a specific colony name in front of it
Mhm.
like that.
It's just them.
I know, yeah, but you see what I mean?
Yeah.
If we talk about it, that might be, for some, at least my low learners, that might be, look, mark out the state or the colony in front,
Mhm.
look at it as just. Cause that would've, I know that would've thrown some of my kids.
There was another one similar to that on Learning Check 5, where they included the state. It was the one about, we'll get to it. I think I included
Well,
it.
see, that's why I found out after first learning check, is I go back through these questions, I give them a copy, and we go back, and someone reads the question or the subject, and then I'll tell them, all right, you gotta highlight the words you don't understand.
Mhm.
Then we can talk about it, and I found that has been very helpful for my seventh
I
grade.
like that strategy.
I mean, it's a pain, I use that sometimes as Bill one, where we'll go through X, Y, Z, like, how many are on the page, 2 pages last time. But for them to, and they'll write their notes on their copy of what this word means.
Are they keeping up with it?
They have a notebook, and it's under their data information in the notebook, and some of them said they go back to it and look at it just to have it, because they've noticed that some of the other questions might be similarly worded.
Mhm.
So, we'll see, we're gonna go through them and I'm gonna ask them to find different questions they still got no conception over. And I'm gonna squeeze this, learning check 6 through 2. I told them I was more worried about government than I was any other section.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing.
This one, Garcia, your kids did awesome on 96%,
Drill and kill on this one.
yeah.
Commander-in-Chief,
Uh-huh.
Washington, it's just that call and response that we do. It's literally just, anytime that they see Commander-in-Chief, they just literally go to Washington. This one is straight up drill and kill.
And I've asked, and I started sticking, okay, who's our commander-in-chief today? Oh, Biden?
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
you gotta
he's
refer to it
commander-in-chief.
as continue, cause every time that they think about new presidents, they're gonna have to think of the president, that their commander-in-chief.
We even had a discussion about how some presidents who never served had to go through etiquette classes, how to salute and who to salute and who to offer handshakes to. Because, you know, there's pictures of Obama getting off the helicopter and he just kind of wants to shake hands with him and that was not right etiquette, you're supposed to salute. And he had to be taught that. And that took him back. I said, you wouldn't know that if you never served.
Yeah.
So the next one is Saratoga. We're all over the place. Me and Armstrong did very poorly here, but we still did better than the
District.
district
Cause
average.
district was what, 38? Is that the right number?
And I think the UNO reference that you made
Yeah.
is the best way to really make this concrete, because I was going over that at our academic night. I went over it when we talked about Gettysburg and Vicksburg as well. So I brought back in Saratoga, made them kind of call and respond on different turning points that we've gone over.
Yep, and that's kind of what I referred to as like this, going back to Saratoga, that was our turning point. What was the symbol? We drew the little symbol, and then I was like, alright, so this is the same thing. And then since it talked about splitting the Confederacy in half, split starts with an S, so therefore they could use the same symbol. So, and then also the Mississippi River is never straight, so it looks like it would split. Just
I like that.
So I used the blue marker.
Still continue to like
Build
Bring
on those
in
same
the-
tidbits, yeah.
same
That's
strategy
nice.
that they're already used to.
It's an interesting way to do it.
Because
Flores,
most of
did
the time-
you do that UNO S? You just drill and killed with Saratoga?
Yeah, I may have, that sounds familiar, but I honestly can't remember back
I
that
know,
far.
that's what I was trying to come up with last night, was, what did I even use to,
And you might not
I
use it
did.
the same way next
You
year.
did.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I've been using that since my first year, and typically it's worked. That's why I keep going back to it. Plus, every once in a while I would have Uno cards anyways, so I'm like, might as well just pop them out.
Yeah.
Show 'em.
this one was so easy
You got it wrong.
that I was
Yeah.
like shocked that we didn't do better altogether. You were 87, I was 75. Flores 80, Armstrong's 46. District was 83, we were at 74, but I feel like 83 is a good reference.
I think sometimes the easy, when they know it, it's almost like it's too easy.
And they
And
think
then
you're
they
trying to
start
be
second,
tricked.
they start second guessing themselves. And I told them, if, once you answer it, do not second guess yourself. If you
Yeah,
get it
go
really
with your
good the
gut.
first time, don't go second guessing yourself. That's where you mess up.
I know, I hate when I'm hand grading and I see the
Circle and
erase.
erase, yeah.
I always write on there, if I'm handing it, I write on it, you second guessed yourself. It's like,
I always
stop
end up
that.
circling or pointing back an arrow to the thing, and I'm always like, go with your gut.
Yeah, I like that too.
This is just call and response.
Yeah,
Repeat it over and over and over and over again.
if they missed this at this point, I'd be
Yeah.
more frustrated, unalienable rights to them.
Yeah.
So we've talked about that a lot.
Moving into
I think I was pretty limited with this one. 2 or 3.
11, 13, 15.
The third one that I used, so we kind of like dropped back a little bit here with approach meets masters. Trying to think of the date that we took this.
This would have been right before winter break, so it was like a week before.
Oh, Christmas, right before
Yeah, this is
Christmas.
the one we expected them to perform early on.
Yeah, but you can't predict kids. Try to make you, but
They still mastered more than they did on the first one.
Oh, this is that government one.
Mastered more than, the only one they mastered more on was Revolution.
Really?
Yeah, the Washington and the Constitutional Convention
Which is
would be good.
shocking.
Yeah,
Well,
it's crazy. Okay,
So either they knew it or they didn't, is
Yeah.
what that tells me.
yeah.
yeah,
They met pretty middle of the road, tied with the last one. 5% less than the fourth one, 11% less than the second.
I don't know what it is about that Hercules Confederation, they get some stuff.
They don't really understand government that well yet.
Yeah, but they can, but like if I throw a triangle up there, they immediately can tell me about checks and balances and how it connects.
That's a fair point.
And then you put something, you put articles connect, confederation, well, you can't connect them. And I've got to figure out another way to run this one.
Yeah, they did surprisingly better on the 7 principles of government than they did on Articles of Confederation based questions.
I think with this one, going back to the whole cause and effect, because the reason why we created the articles the way that we did was simply because of what the king had done to us before. So it's just going back to that cause and effect. If the king was super controlling, then we're gonna do the opposite of what he wanted us to do. If he was making us pay taxes, then we were not gonna make us pay taxes. It's
That's
just
true.
cause and effect of the opposite of what they had beforehand.
So the other way is look at they can look at the DOI and see the same thing and get the articles.
Exactly,
I
so like, what
love
did they
it.
not do well on the Articles of Confederation? Well, let's do the opposite.
I like
So
it.
it's just literal cause and effect.
What I think I wanna create over the next couple of weeks is maybe like a cumulative cause and effect, just like three causes, 3 effects, have them almost match them for each of the units.
Yeah, that would work.
Just to kind of get them refamiliarized with cause and effect and
That's a good idea.
reinforce previous knowledge from like stuff that they haven't heard in forever. I feel like this one, yeah, should have been fairly simple.
And I think now they would, maybe not now.
I think now it's so wordy.
Yeah, now it's just like so far away removed from it that we're gonna have to review it. And that's the good thing about this stuff is that we will have time to review all this stuff. But with it being so far away from right now, they probably won't remember this until we start talking about it again. But we'll see what happens.
I don't know, I found a way to bring up a lot of the amendments, the seconds.
Oh, yeah.
That one was almost logical though.
Yeah.
And I think now they can use logic more than just
Mm-hmm.
what they actually had at the beginning of the year.
3 branches. This was easy.
Yeah, this one we did
Yeah.
pretty well on. And we were all Flores 86, Garcia 87, I was 77%, Armstrong 59. But we also had, yours are all on level, I have 2 advanced, he has 2 advanced, I have 2 inclusion,
I've got
his
one
are all
inclusion and
on
sped.
level.
Yeah.
And behavioral, let's don't forget my 3 behaviorals.
Yeah. I know that one of my classes frustrate my 6th period, the behavior is the only thing holding them back.
Yeah, my 7th period is the same issue.
My 5th period,
So
same
smart.
way.
So smart, but then can't
So
fix
dumb.
themselves, yeah.
What I've seen though is getting them out of their seats has been the most beneficial thing. So I think they're gonna do well with the hexagon activity and the graffiti wall.
What's crazy is my 6th period, my 7th period is just basic routines of like getting them started with their bell ringers, getting them seated, getting them started. But once we get into the actual like guided notes and when they're doing something, not necessarily standing up, because then they just talk too much. It's the quiet time that they're the best at, which is actually their worst thing that they're good at. Like they cannot sit down and be quiet whenever I give instructions or anything like that. At that point, I'm just like, I'm just gonna go straight into whatever it is that we're doing. Like they're losing their good things, they're losing this and that, going straight into it, because otherwise they're gonna waste the time.
That's how
Yeah,
much
I've cut that out to 5th period
Yeah.
too. We don't do good things, we don't
Yeah.
go over anything. You come back from lunch, you're going straight into what I tell you to do. But
Nice.
that's the only way I can manage them.
Seeing two kids every day share the good thing, and
You know,
Feel
but
bad.
that's interesting, I have two classes, it's 5 or 6 different kids every day. I said, cause we're doing my collaborative thing today, and I said, all right, I picked y'all for a reason, so we get to good things, you just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
yeah, that last one was, I think, should be pretty simple, because they can narrow it down to separation of powers or checks and balances.
Mhm.
And as long as it's only one
One
answer
of you
choice,
guys, yeah.
it'll be good.
Plus, whenever we see the web, it's literally, like, this one is more just now logic. The fact that it's separated into 3 different pieces that add up to one thing, they know that pieces make up this whole, so
Oh, I know.
that should be fine.
I think they'll do a lot better here.
I think with
I
this
got
one,
it bad
they
with
will.
this one.
Now that they've started to see, how the state governments were kind of being controlled, by the federal government during Reconstruction, or the Southerners were trying to basically rebel because they wanted states' rights, a lot of that is gonna tie into this, and it's gonna help them out.
I know with the 10th Amendment, like we talked about this, I brought something current, and we used Roe v. Wade, how, when it was first done, the courts read it the Constitution very widely. I said, but what does the state 10th Amendment say? Well, it's read narrowly because the states make the choices.
Mhm.
So why did Roe v. Wade get? So now they've stuck back to the 10th Amendment, anything that might have with states jumping out. Oh, yeah. But that, and it was an interesting way, I mean, it just came out perfectly, good timing for me to put the 2 and 2 together
Yeah.
for state. For something in their world that they had heard about.
I do kind of the non-professional thing to do, I talk about marijuana
I
use.
think we all do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cause it's just the easiest thing for them to like get involved with, but it actually will apply to them in, you know, hopefully not right now, but.
I
to be able to make those
recently
decisions.
started bringing up education by state, because I'm realizing that some, like our high mobility rate, that we have a lot of out-of-state kids.
A lot.
And with all those new House bills, it's relevant,
Mhm.
especially in a advanced course. I think you can touch on that a little bit more.
Mhm.
We did well, I mean, we were pretty similar across the board.
I think that's how my
Strong-
kids remember the 10th Amendment, I really do, maybe something they've heard recently.
I think the gestures is the most beneficial. Those guys over at
Yeah,
Ward
yeah.
saying the same thing and like wanting me to recite it for them.
I mean, it works. I learned it off a YouTube video. And then you just practice it over and over again, do it 6 times a day for however many weeks we did this, and it gets in your head pretty easily.
Cause him and I ran tutoring together last week,
Mm.
and I think he must have been in yours previously, Aiden.
Yes.
He's been in my class.
Which one?
Has
Aiden?
it? Oh, did you just use the?
Oh, Aiden?
Medellin.
Oh, yeah. Who? Like, then I don't think I know him.
Yeah, he's in my class.
Okay, so you've been using him
Yeah.
regularly as well.
I had Nathan who left, I didn't know if he came to y'all or not.
Oh, I have that Aiden. He's my other advanced,
That's okay.
my first year, he's good, but
Goofball.
he knew his student knew the gestures really well. Alright, so this one I thought they would do, well, the idea of Irish immigration, I thought they'd do well with. Clearly,
Yeah,
We
immigration in
struggled.
general. But this is now more a northern versus southern state type of question now.
And I think they're gonna get that.
Yeah, because now that they've seen so much of it with plantations in the south and then industry in the north leading to the Civil War, they've seen so much of that now that this one should be easy to answer. And with it being a star question,
from 2017, and I think 8.10B is pretty regularly tested. I think that this learning check in general has a lot of the most heavily tested, and we were kind of all over the place. Lows, highs. We were definitely below the district average for almost every question. So this feels like a unit that we want to go back and focus heavily on. Early Republic.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, we do.
Because they're all so similar.
We gotta figure out something with the cases too, because
Even
they've got
Marbury.
Marbury versus Madison, but that's about the only case that they
Yeah.
can stick in their mind, and I know that I'm gonna be on there. And it's
With
been there
the-
for the last couple of years.
And that's the thing about it too, is that it's also only like 2 court cases that they ever actually test. Like, it's really only Marbury versus Madison or Worcester versus Georgia.
They tested Worcester versus
Yeah.
Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
2021.
I tried, when we went back over, I tried to tell the kids, remember that's Indians versus Georgia.
I think that was the easiest thing for mine,
Mhm.
was that they understood Trail of Tears. When they saw Georgia, they knew it had something to do.
I didn't get it till after the test on that one.
Yeah, it's convenient.
When we went back over it, then the aha button went
Yeah.
back up, and I was
Before.
like, Lord, money,
It's a shame.
y'all hurt my head.
I think with this one, it should be approved just by basically being around.
Mhm. I think with other factors they've learned this
Yeah.
year, we'll help them come back to that.
I don't know how this percentage works here. If they gave it to them, if they only got one of the correct answers, because our percentages look really high here. We're all above 60.
So that means a lot of people ended up getting a lot of them correct. It would've been 2 points, so basically the percentage, if most of the people only got one right, it would've been closer to 50. Now, obviously, with it being like a question, most of the time, one of them would guess it right, percentage is kinda gonna be higher than 50.
I know that when we talked about Washington's farewell, we talked about dangers that he was trying to address, so I know that's how they got 30, they sold the word danger.
Yeah. I've already intimidated you.
Because this language alone is gonna, if they saw this again
Yep.
on Stardust, I don't think we would have the exact same success rates.
So definitely they see the word foreign,
Mm-hmm.
they definitely know that that's a bad word right there.
But they also say commercial, which they understand that's how we're making money.
Yeah.
But that's, yeah, that's gonna be one of them we're gonna have to go back and remind them, you know, if you're
Yeah.
writing old English, you need to be familiar.
I think with this one, even just going into, just like 3 simple bullet points for the farewell address, just going over it and over and over again.
Stay out of everybody's way,
Yeah, like just go
No
over the 3 main
parties.
points and you'll be fine.
yeah.
Like, you can kind of figure out the words that go along with this. Now,
Right.
this is the part that I really, really hate about not having to, like, do these on paper tests, is back in the day, I used to have it to where they would, like, draw little arrows and then write out everything that they know, so brain dumping on top of the word that they know, and then at the end, connect to something in the answer choices. So they would write down the 3 things that they know about the farewell address, and then they'd go back into the answer choices and basically circle something that would have to do with the little things that they wrote. We don't do that anymore, so that kinda sucks.
I do something similar. When I was reviewing it, I almost had them rewrite each sentence. Say, what does this mean? What are they basically saying? Give me like 4 or 5 words and rewrite that.
I think one of the things we need to start doing too is, and this is just for like next year, we can start to do like paragraphs where they do like hashtag summaries. Like where it's like 2 or 3 words to summarize what that entire paragraph's about.
I think that would be
Is that a
good.
lean forward strategy?
I think it's something, I've seen it somewhere, but
They do it on DBQs,
Yeah, it's just something like, so that way they can make it quick and easy and.
especially if we're gonna have to write full sentences on
Yeah.
the short answer. Let's practice those, drill.
Yep.
We need,
It's,
give me 3 bullet points of what you're in.
it's even more relevant to them now
Yeah.
as technology, like they continue to use hashtags,
Yeah.
@signs.
Okay, alright.
For success rate here, I think Garcia.
Marcia did awesome on.
66, you were 7% or 10%, 7, over the district, which, the American continents, you would think that, I guess if it just said Monroe adoption as an answer choice,
Yeah, that would made it easier.
they would have easily had it,
Yeah.
but that's not gonna be the case.
So with this one, I always go back to that whole thing where I do MEW, and then it's like basically whatever made you loser or whatever. And with this one, it just goes back to those same basic words that I use all the time. So the Monroe Doctrine prevents European colonization in the Western Hemisphere. So, cause that's just the wording that I've always used, cause I know that like the first time I taught it, that's the wording that I saw in one of the STAR questions, and it's still the same wording that they used, I guess on this one. Yeah, it says in STAR 2019, so there was some.
They're not gonna
there's
change
some-
it much.
Yeah.
I think another good way to
Drill and kill.
moving forward, other than drill and kill, is to connect that early republic idea that they all tried to replicate
Mhm.
what Washington did by, through his farewell address,
Mhm.
avoiding foreign alliances being one of them. And that's where I saw some success, but I don't know that it directly related to this question.
Yeah, I also refer to it as kind of like calling dibs.
Mm.
So like if we as the United States call dibs, then that prevents Europe from being able to take our stuff, because we already called dibs.
And
It's
That
kind of
resonates
through
well with
westward
them.
expansion
Yeah.
too, it's ours.
Yeah, I
Yes.
literally just tell them like, imagine like you have snacks in the refrigerator, and then your sister wants to take them. You already called dibs on those, they're yours. Don't let your sister take your stuff.
I like that.
Yeah.
What's the next one we got?
Learn to check live.
So this one I
Oh, this
didn't
one was
include
hideous.
as many, but we were all over the place with the ones that I did.
I would say on 5, I think some of it was just flat burnout.
Yeah,
Because we were the last learning check in our group, and I know I had several of my EL kids that had taken 2 days at telepossing, and they had just finished math, and then did 4 days of interim. I think we just hit burnout on it. I know there's no way we can move it away from the interim, and which will be interesting next year, since they're moving testing up by 2 weeks. And I had to cut one of our, it sounds like I had to cut one of our learning checks.
I think number one for sure is definitely, it was tricky, just simply because,
Mhm.
two, the answers are literally kind of similar. Like, it's unconstitutional, favors the wealthy. It's kind of similar to the first one, it's inefficient and poorly managed.
Yep.
Like, both of those two things are kind of like negatives towards why, and they both could be reasonable. Like, once I take away from, like, I don't remember the answer choices, so therefore I don't remember which one's the right answer. Like, it literally breaks down to those two, and both of them could be right.
I can see where they would go with A over B,
Yeah.
inefficient, poorly managed, oh, that's why we need a second bank. First one didn't make.
I was gonna say the first one, like, answer B, with it being unconstitutional, like, most of the time, they don't really break laws, otherwise, you know, why would we have the first one, why would we have a second one, like, it's not breaking any big rules. And yes, it does favor the wealthy, which that's the part where they might have ended up, going with that one, is because, you know, Jackson is a common man's president, he's against the wealthy or whatever, so they might go with that one.
I think that's where I found success, was they
Yeah.
just remembered the idea of the common man.
Mhm.
This was 11th grade, this would be really cool to like connect this back to that Silicon Valley Bank
Mhm.
and how it handed out all these bailouts for all these companies and just gave them their money back that should have been gone.
And
But if it was
unfortunately,
us,
we
it
don't
was
talk
not.
we don't talk Jackson's, they talk Jackson 11th grade. He's gone. Once they leave 8th grade, he's not spoken about again.
But that is a really
I agree with you, it's a great one.
Mhm.
But I mean, it's a
interesting
great one to
connection,
connect to
unfortunately.
the Great Depression too.
Yeah,
I've used it that way, but that's unfortunately, any of the presidents under Abraham Lincoln, you never hear from them again once you leave middle school.
Mhm.
trying to think of a way to connect that to something.
Well, didn't we? I don't know, need a good something.
I know.
No,
Yeah, we can call it.
Yeah.
ish.
This is the one that I thought super easy. They saw the same word, 4 on the left, so they can at least get 1 point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
I
you
think
can-
that when they read down, that was was singing Cherokee, 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 Cherokee. It was the, I don't know what sovereignty is.
Yeah, sovereignty was definitely the thing that got them.
Cause they might not know substance farming, but they knew farming was. Those would be the two where I could see them jumping back and forth, and we've not talked about any of them losing their culture or taxation on the Indians.
Yeah, sovereignty just relates back to seven principles. and-
But that's one thing I think they caught them.
Cause we hadn't gone over that in a good minute, and then we haven't taught the, which is why, I really like whenever we teach manifest destiny first, because at that point, we're talking about popular sovereignty and the Compromise of 1850. And that way we can talk about that first before we talk about this right here. But then again, this one, I feel like it's a different, this was Star, really?
Every-
Oh, yeah.
He turned it into a Star question with this.
Every question on this test was from STAR or modified by STAR.
But
This one
that,
technically would have been too, because it's the double drop down.
but what sovereignty is, when we went through it over, it was like, they're their own nation. Just remember that Indians are not their own kind of their own little country within the side of us.
Yeah, I talked about Vatican City
Yeah, that makes
I hadn't thought about that, but you're right.
or Washington DC.
Yeah, we had that today.
So we'll need these and then use them for whenever we start continuing planning.
And we're working today, we're meeting as a team after school,
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Right.
Thursday,
No,
next
it was-
Wednesday.
It was today,
It's today?
yeah.
Okay, I guess we're saying today.
Cause I have a way tomorrow, I knew I couldn't say long. I was thinking, well, they're doing awful good over there, we're getting them out of the way.